What's up, family? Welcome to this episode of the Black Smoke Barbecue Podcast, where barbecue is not only the code we live by, it's the culture we embody. My name is Jeffrey Boyd, and I'm your host for today. And today's show is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be the precursor to the ending of season 2. This year, we've had approximately 30 episodes and 6 bonus episodes. We dropped the first episode of this season back on February 3rd, 2024. And next week, we're going to be wrapping up with our season finale. And that's a great episode that you don't want to miss. We've got a great guest on there, and we got a great event that we're going to be talking about as well. We had a lot of fun this year, got out to some places, did some road trips and meetups, and just want to give you guys a thank you for listening, because none of this happens without you guys. Everything that we do is for you guys, and we definitely appreciate the support you've given us. Right now, I want to ask you to please subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And we're not going to take too much time. We're going to go ahead and get right into the show. First, we're going to go back and revisit episode 39. And this one was a great time here. We were able to talk with Moe Cason. He came by to talk about his new cookbook that he was bringing out. And he also had a great time talking to us about a story where he had a brisket that he literally thought that he destroyed in a competition, but he had a great turnout in the end. Take a listen here.
It isn't ready yet. And I'm just like, how is it not ready yet? But I learned from that experience, from that tire tasting brisket, that it's a process that you have to take your time with. And he didn't know what he was doing. He was just trying to fake like he knew what he was doing. Whenever you cook something, you just got to really take your time and pay attention. If you don't know what you're doing,
right.
Yeah. If you don't know what you're doing, get this book.
Exactly
Get this book. Get this book.
There's one thing about barbecue. You can't. I mean, I can cook a 4-hour brisket because I know what the hell I'm doing. But most people are not going to do that. Like when I cook competition, I can cook my briskets are normally 6 to 7 hours, and they're banging. But because I know what I'm doing. But generally, it's going to be a lot lower temperature. It's going to be a lot longer. You go to Texas, dude, you're going to get these 11, 12, 13-hour briskets, and they're going to be money. They're going to be black as a hockey puck, but they're going to be banging if they do it right. Okay? So my boy Tuffy, you know Tuffy Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Who smoked. And so him and I and Bad Butt Byron, we went over to the Netherlands. Netherlands. And they had this U.S. versus kind of like a Ryder Cup golf thing, but it was barbecue. So it was us against, and then Bob Trudnak, barbecue guru, against all of Europe. So everybody in Europe that came to this cook-off, depending who they were, they had to go against us. Us 4 Americans. So I was going through my full routine. I've got Pella Cookers, GMG, Green Mountain Grills, good friends of mine. I've got some on my back deck right now. They had a couple GMGs they brought for me over there, obviously, because I flew over there to cook on. And I can cook a brisket off a GMG that you thought it came off a stick burner because I know what the hell I'm doing. And so we go through our whole routine. I get my prep. I get my briskets trimmed up, blah, blah, blah. Now, we're cooking really good high-end Wagyu briskets. That's what you're doing when you're competing. You're not cooking some Walmart brisket. You're cooking, like, really good stuff. You have to, because the people that you're competing against are cooking good stuff. And so I had some couple really nice Wagyu briskets. So this is about 10 o'clock. I start my process is already started. But 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, because I wanted to be, I want to have a safety cushion of when this brisket got done, because this is my first time cooking in the Netherlands. So I had these pits fired up. And I put my brisket on at, I think it was 11 o'clock. I put my brisket on. These are beautiful Wagyu briskets. Fat side down. There's a whole nother story on why I do fat side down, but we'll get to it. So I cooked this brisket. I got my bibs on. I got a little cot next to the pit, a little Green G. I lay down to get some shut-eye. Bob's to the left of me. Tuffy's to the right of me. And then about an hour and a half in, the GMG starts beeping at me, telling it needs pellets. which is weird because I got GMGs in my back deck and I can put pellets in and go for hours before it calls for pellets. Didn't even make the connection. Got up, got the bag of pellets, opened up, filled the hopper up, laid back down on that cot. And then about 2.5 hours, 3 hours in, that brisket was smelling like really good. Like too good to be 3 hours on the pit. So I get up, and you can see where I'm going. I got up, and I start looking at that damn thing, and I said 275 degrees is what I cooked this briskets at. So I'm looking at it like, why in the F are these briskets? And then I realized it's Celsius.
Ooh. Wow.
You know what 270 Celsius done? That's 500 some degrees. So these briskets were like cooking at 500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Crispy. It works for London broil.
And but that's what I'm saying. I was like, oh my God. So I figured the math out of what Celsius is. So what I did was I turned the pit down to, I don't know what it was, 80, 90 or whatever Celsius, whatever it is, to make 270 degrees. I wrapped these briskets, what I do in butcher paper, and they were done, like done. At 2 a.m. And I told myself, I said,
Wow.
oh my God, turning wasn't until the next day at 2 p.m. I want my briskets to rest, but not slumber. And they were slumbering.
Wow.
And so I put them in there and I yelled I woke Tuffy up. I woke Bob up. I said, don't touch these. Don't open this cooler up. Do not open it up. I got 2 briskets in there, man. And I said, it's a travesty, but don't open it up.
Travesty.
So, and to get back to it, I cook fat side down. So this is one of the things I teach in my barbecue class. I always cook fat side down. First of all, it's because I want the meat side to have a beautiful appearance to it, bark and everything. So when I slice the brisket up for judging, when I put it in the box, I want this beautiful bark from left and right all the way across that slice of brisket. If you cook meat side down, what happens? Some of that bark falls down to the bottom of your pit. Now your brisket looks crazy because there's patches of rub that are gone. If you're cooking for your family and friends, it doesn't matter. But for competition, that's a big thing. And when I cook for my family and friends, I still do my competition tricks and tips. So I grabbed this brisket out of the cooler after 2 a.m. to probably 1:15 the next day. I wasn't excited about looking at this brisket. I knew that it was hard as a hockey puck. So I grabbed it out, and I mean straight as an ironing board, son. I mean hard. But what happened was, because I cooked with such a high-grade brisket, quality-wise, it was knocking on the door of Kobe. That's how nice that brisket was. The bottom fat, I flipped it over, and when I mean hard as an ironing board, it was hard as an ironing board. So I took my brisket knife and I just shaved off the whole bottom of that brisket. Everything that was hard, I took off. And I flipped it back over, and I started touching it, and I was like, damn, this brisket ain't bad. Before I even sliced it. And I looked at Bob, this is another one. I looked at Bob like, man, I think I might be okay. So I started slicing these briskets, getting these slices off of this brisket. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then Bob was like, hey man, I got some au jus left over from one of my from my cook. Take those slices and just soak them in that au jus, which I was going to do anyway. So I took these briskets, like 8, 9 slices, and I set them in au jus in like a little small boat, just to keep them hydrated as I was building my box. And I turned everything in, and I was like, oh my God, this brisket is actually damn good. And so they called all the categories, and then they got to brisket, and they called 10th. And I really honestly didn't think I was going to ever get a call on brisket. I was like, I burnt, I scorched it. Man, I got down to like 4th place brisket, and they called Moe Cason barbecue. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God, are you kidding me? People were, I was shocked. Tuffy was smacking me in the back of the head or back of the back, and he was like, "Big Moe." And then Bobby was like, "Oh, I can't believe it." And Byron Butler was coming up to me, and I got like 4th or 5th place. I can't remember 4th or 5th place in brisket. But that's cooking. That's the adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
Cook
Yeah.
a high quality piece of beef, which I teach in my barbecue class. It's really important. And then cook it fat side down. That fat took all of the heat. And that's what saved it. If I cooked that thing meat side down, it would be toast. I'd be done.
Yeah.
Done. But because the fat was able to take a lot of that beating of 500 and whatever 275 in Fahrenheit is, I mean in Celsius, that's what the brisket cooked at. And that's a thing I teach in my barbecue class about selecting great quality meat and being able to make adjustments. Because when you cook in competition, it's all about adjustment.
That was a great episode with Moe. Next, we're going to revisit episode 55 with the one, the only, Mr. John Haney of South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is a legendary pit builder and pit master. And here you're going to hear him talk about the different types of hash that you see in South Carolina, the ones that he prefers to make. And he also talks about his method to cooking whole hogs. And be sure and take some notes because he's going to give you a surefire recipe for some greens that will be sure to wow your family this holiday season. Let's listen in.
Let's start with that hash, man. How do you make that hash? And I mean, how do you serve it? It just looks good to me. So I want to hear about it.
So actually hash is, you see the mustard and tomato base. That's the two basic ones down here, but they do have another one. Well, actually, they have two more. So they have 4 hashes in South Carolina. It depends on the region, and I've had it all. I've had it all. I only cook the mustard in the red, and I call it the red tomato base. So in a place called Batesburg, Leedsburg area, they make a white hash. It's like a white hash. I don't know. It's kind of like I don't know if it's the Alabama white sauce type thing with mayonnaise. I'm not sure, but it's a white hash. It's okay. But I just not used to white sauce, so I'm not, but then around, Greenwood area stuff, they make a hash. It's just like meat. It doesn't really have a base like tomatoes or it's just like ground meat. It's okay, but to me, it's like ground up meat. But I like mine and I like mine made from the head. So it's just so much different flavors of different texture of meat and stuff in the head. I like mine. The head one's more robust. I don't tell people it's the head, but and I just in Columbia area, they love the mustard base. They love the mustard base hash. Around my area, they like the tomato base, the red, but you serve it over rice.
Okay.
And a traditional barbecue, if I do a whole hog, a traditional barbecue is the whole hog meat, rice, the hash over the rice, mac and cheese, and baked beans. That's traditional. That's it.
You ain't right, John, because I ain't had dinner yet. And
Me either, man.
Good grief.
Like I'm gonna do a whole hog on one of my food trucks in a couple of weeks, just when it get cold. It's hard cooking a hog when it's hot. Spoonfed and I had a heck of a time cooking them pigs down in with Rib King, the Summer Royale. It was hot as heck out there. So Cheese told me, said, "Where you want to be?" I said, "Put us under the trees in the back, right?" So we're in the back. Under the trees, it's still hot as hell there. Spoon under the tree. We try to cook. And this the first time, see, I'm running away with it again. But I'm gonna tell you,
come on with it.
That's what you're here for.
Yeah. Spoon is a character. That's my guy.
Oh yeah, that's our guy right there.
Yeah, man.
So I cook my hogs on the back, right, the whole way. I don't turn. Spoon turned his, right. So I told him all, I was doing it. So he told me, "John, I'm gonna cook mine on the back." I said, "Spoon, you usually don't do this kind of stuff at a contest. No, you don't practice at the contest." But he did it. Honestly, He scared me, right? Because when he cooked it, he did it the whole way on the back. And so I tasted his before we turned in. He scared me. I said, "Oh, it's pretty good." So I start squaring up, right? I said, "See, Spoon, I'm teaching you how to beat me." So I got a question. So if I lose, I was getting myself together for the blow. Getting soft off of myself up for the blow. I said, "Spoon, I'm teaching you how to beat me." But luckily I pulled it off. But he was right there, man. His hog was good. And he did cook it on the back. He said he's never gonna cook it nowhere else. No, he's never gonna cook it no other way. Because the skin cooks. Because where my people want the skin. That's their thing. They want the skin. And you gotta cook that skin with cracks, with pops.
Yeah. And so that thing is just, that hog's just comfy in itself the whole time.
Yeah.
So I didn't, those guys didn't even know. I never put sauce on it.
Good grief.
I inject it with a pressure injection. I shot 1.5 gallons injecting in it. And the injection in the belly with the fat was my sauce. When I tasted it, I said, there's no need to put the sauce.
You got him shouting over there, man.
Man.
Brandon shouting over.
Hey, I'm over here like, man, we need to take a road trip.
You gotta get your car, get your plane together, whatever you got, and come to Fat Man to this.
I want to come to the pig picking.
Picking. That's gonna be on. It's gonna be.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah,
that's gonna be on. I hope you guys can make it that, because it's gonna be. Because he's trying to get. He's looking for like 30 teams. We're trying to get 30 teams.
That's what the first weekend in November.
That's right after. No, it's right after Thanksgiving.
It was right after Thanksgiving.
Oh, it could be tough, but it'll be worth the sacrifice. I'm telling you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want one of these plates I saw in that video with them greens and macaroni and cheese and that hash. And I could have swore I saw some. I mean, I might be tripping because
So what I do, guys, when you visit Charleston, you come. I invite you to cook for you. That's how whoever comes, chefs from all, Charleston Food and Wine and whatever. When the chefs come, I cook for them. I host them. I cook for them. Whatever, especially like shrimp and grits, stuff that they don't get, stuff that low country stuff.
Oh yeah.
So like hash. I did a catering job about 3 weeks ago. The people from up north never had hash in their life, but they cleaned it. They ate it all.
They did.
The red hash never had it in their life.
But I'll be right there with them, elbows greased and getting mine too.
I don't do a lot of the liver. I don't put a lot of liver in it because a lot of people don't like that irony.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not a fan.
I don't do liver. I don't put liver in mine. So, because it's just the iron, it can throw it all off.
Well, you mentioned this here because I was going to ask you about this, about this being a fusion, like low country cooking. Would this be considered like that Gullah cuisine?
I wouldn't say Gullah. Actually, the first time I tasted was at Clemson. Honestly, first time I tasted was at Clemson. So it was kind of like the other side thing.
Okay.
We just take, and honestly, a lot of black people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
They know what the pig feet and stuff are, but they have pig feet, pig tail. But the hash, you have to introduce it to them.
Oh yeah.
And then you get people from up north. It's even, people, they never ate catfish. They never do, they just.
What? Blasphemous.
Yeah, come on now.
Blasphemous. That's just straight blasphemous. They ain't had no catfish. Come on now.
No, I had some bougie girls from Atlanta one time. And I was cooking catfish stew and they just, we don't eat no catfish. We don't eat no catfish. So I took the catfish, food is preparation. Preparation is preparation.
Oh yeah.
It's how you prep it. So I take my recipe with catfish, I'll take it and soak it in buttermilk and Texas Pete.
Oh.
And you Texas Pete, it takes all that off. It tastes like grouper.
Yes, sir.
You don't never know. So when I did the catfish, they took it all home. They said they didn't eat it. But catfish has that kind of muddiness if you don't that kind of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
But Texas Pete, it's not hot either. Buttermilk, Texas Pete, take it all out. When I do venison, I marinate my venison in Texas Pete. Texas Pete take all the gaminess out of it, and it's not hot. But you got to use Texas Pete. I've been to events and I tried it. They didn't have, like, I did an event in Chicago. They wanted my venison stew. They didn't have, I couldn't find Texas Pete in no store up in Chicago.
No, you won't find that up there.
It ain't there. And I look.
I'm from that area, John, and you don't find Texas Pete up there.
I look. And I should have brought it with me. So I said, well, I'll use Louisiana hot sauce. Same thing. Shoot. That venison was so hot, I get a whole pot of it. I gave it to a friend of mine, Mexican guy, and he wanted. He took the whole. It's hot as heck. I couldn't. But the Texas Pete will go away. But that Louisiana, it just hold the heat.
Yeah,
but I thought it was the same. It's not the same.
I keep that Texas Pete in stock right here because I'll tell you something. I know y'all gonna think I'm bougie and tripping, but maybe Texas Pete is damn good on some popcorn too.
Oh, you ain't never lie, man.
I got a friend to put it on popcorn. They opened the bag of corn. What do you call it? The
corn chips, like Fritos.
That's not the corn chips. The
Cheeto.
The skins. The skins.
Like the corn nuts.
Skin. They open the bag and dump the Texas Pete on the pork skin.
Oh yeah,
pork skins. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My dad used to do that
and do the pork skin.
Absolutely.
And I like Texas Pete on chicken bog. Like the chicken bog and the sprinkle of Texas Pete on chicken bog, and then you got something. Man. You know, or fried fish.
Good.
Hey, well, you know what, Brandon? Hold on. I want to follow up on one more thing before I give this back to you because you mentioned cooking. It's about that preparation.
Yes,
so one last thing I gotta ask you is that preparation. Educate me. You know, how am I going to prepare my greens so I can make it look like yours? Because man, I'm telling you, it's popping off the screen, and I want some.
Don't use water.
Right.
Don't use water. I don't use water.
I don't either.
I don't use water. Let the green do its thing. Let the green make the flavor. If you boil a bunch of, if some people boil the meat down, put the greens over there, you boiling the stuff out in the water. When I do mine, I do, I'm going to tell you this. I don't even tell a lot of people all of my recipes, but I'm going to tell y'all this. How I make my greens is I call cooking up, cooking down. It's a 2 process.
Wait. Let me get my pen out. Let me go. Go on, educate me here.
Okay, so listen to me now. Cooking, when I say cooking up, is I get the big cast iron pot, right? And then I saute Texas sweet onions. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you everything. I start with bacon. I chop the bacon up. I saute the bacon up, break it down, crumble the bacon up. Then I drop Texas sweet onions, not the red onions, not Texas sweet. Chop them up big, saute them down, and then use the andouille sausage, cut them up, break up the andouille, let them cook down. You want that flavor. You're building that flavor in that pot.
Oh yeah.
Then I drop some garlic. Everything about you don't want to put the garlic in too quick; it burns. So you drop the garlic in the end. Boom. Drop your green after everything kind of melted down. You got that good grease in the bottom. Drop your greens there. And just turn it over. In your other pot, you cooking down your ham, hocks, turkey, whatever. That's cooking down. That's the cooking down method, right? So when that gets good and the juice gets reduced well, and your greens are almost done, then you start. If you need a little water, scoop a little bit of that out of there, and then start putting your meat over in the green.
Yes, Lord Jesus.
You see me over. Jesus Christ.
Then I only use. I put a little bit of brown sugar. I don't like my. I put a little bit of brown sugar, and listen, red wine vinegar.
Yes.
Red wine vinegar, and just a dash of red pepper flakes, and that's all you would eat.
So I ain't far off, man. Hey, Brandon, making that tomorrow.
As long as you don't boil them, you can't boil them. That's the thing. I do cabbage the same way. You just cook, because that stuff is nothing but tofu. You just making it. You bringing the flavor to it.
Right.
I love cooking lima beans. I love cooking red bean. But I cook all the time. So I cook all the time.
We eat all the time.
I give it away. I give it away sometimes. I don't got nobody to eat it, so I just give it away.
Hey, here we come. Here we come.
Say something for me next time I come in town.
Now, I don't know about you, but after hearing that, I need a plate. Last, we're going to go back to revisit episode 28 at the very beginning of season 2, when we sat down with Erica Roby of Blue Smoke Blair, and she's going to talk about how she went from being a criminal defense attorney to being a wine sommelier, and then found herself getting into competition barbecue and ending up on Barbecue Brawl's Master of Q. And she has a great story and a great journey. Please take a listen here. And I want to thank you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and drop us a super thanks if you appreciate what we're doing. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and listen to us anywhere where you get your podcasts on any platform or by asking your smart speaker to play the Black Smoke Barbecue podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for the finale of season 2, and we'll see you then.
You've had like a meteoric rise in the world of barbecue. Did you plan all this out, or what the hell happened?
No. So, I mean, I kind of had like a little crazy journey. I'm a criminal defense attorney by trade, and I was living in Miami, Florida. And then my husband at the time, you see where this is going. My husband at the time, he was like, he got a job in Tampa, and he was like, I hate Miami. I'm only here for you, like supporting you and your dreams, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh, I have been really selfish for the past like 7 years. I should probably, throw my support behind him and help him reach his dreams. So I closed my practice down. We moved to Tampa, Florida. And then all of a sudden, like, I had nothing. Like, I had nothing on the horizon. I had a little like owl sweatshirt pajamas that like I just stayed in because nobody was checking for me. Like, I didn't need to change my clothes. I had nowhere to go. And so I was just like sitting there just absolutely miserable. And then like, he's off living the high life, and I'm sitting there like drinking wine on the back porch, like, oh, it's day 50. Here we go again, and even the squirrels had left me at that point because they're like, she's depressing. But I have no friend. And so I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I was only 30 at the time, I think. And I was just like, this is miserable. And like, God, I know my best days are not behind me. They're ahead of me. Like, I didn't do all of this in life just to like come crashing to, a halt and a stop. And so I remember one day I was like out there having one of my benders by myself. And so my husband had come home, and I was just like telling him, how miserable I was. And like, I couldn't really figure out like if I wanted to go back to work for people or if I wanted to start beating the pavement in Tampa and restart my own law firm, like what I was going to do. And I was just really in a quandary. And then, I was like, oh my God, I'm 30. Like, oh, I'm so old. And so I was like expecting that support that I had thrown toward him when I gave up everything I had. And he just looked at me and he was just like, well, Erica, you're in charge of your own happiness. It just walked out. And so,
wow.
Of course, I was thinking of Snapped and how I could get away with things.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized like that was a message from God, and I needed to hear it. And I needed to hear it in that manner because nothing else was going to jar me back to being the Erica that I knew I was. And I was just like, I took that and it just echoed throughout my body, like to my very core. And I was like, you know what? Like, he's right. I am in charge of my own happiness. So I started looking at like, what are things that I like to do? What are things I enjoy if I don't want to get back into law full time that will bring me joy, bring me happiness, not necessarily, something traditional. And somehow I stumbled upon wine school and becoming a sommelier. And so there was like a documentary out, and there was like a reality series out about sommeliers, and I saw them running around in their little suits, and they looked just like lawyers, and they were pouring wine at these nice restaurants and dinners. And I'd always been a foodie and, loving wine already. So I was like, oh, maybe that's something. And then I found out how hard it was to become one. And I was like, I love a challenge. Let's go. So I was like, how do you become a sommelier? Like, what do you do? So I really dove deep into that. And then all of a sudden, I guess because my Google searching was all about wine, an ad came for a culinary school that was the only one that had a licensed sommelier program in the United States that was licensed by the Court of Master Sommeliers, the governing body. And it was out in California or New York. And so I was like, but I felt like electricity. I knew, I felt in my body that this was my message and I was supposed to be there. So I was like, well, I want to go to California. I'm not trying to be in New York. And it was only for 12 weeks. And I was like, we'll do this. And so I remember like my husband came home and I told him, I was like, hey, I found my path. I'm going to become a sommelier and I'm going to go out to culinary school in California for 12 weeks and do it. And he basically just like looked at me and was like, well, if you go, don't come back.
Whoa.
So never like, and it wasn't in that words, but it was something along those lines. Like, so never to be threatened or given an ultimatum. I bleached my hair Beyonce blonde, which was a mistake. It started falling out immediately. But I was moving to California. I didn't care. So I end up in California, in wine school. I'm getting a divorce. I'm starting my life over from the bottom. And I saw like the kitchen kids and everybody. And I'm like one of the oldest people in the class. They're like, oh, she's 30. Oh my God, old lady. And I'm just like, whatever. I was like, you don't know what I've been through to get here.
You don't know me.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah. So I started doing that. And then I went and I flew to Arkansas to take the sommelier exams that I needed in order to get licensed so I could get a job. And I passed, and only 5 people passed. And so like when they called my name, like I was just like, oh my God, because they were like, there was a room, I think there was like 20 of us in the room, and they told us only 5 of you guys have passed, which was expected. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, no, like I need to pass. Like my whole life depends on me passing. And so they called like the first 3 names and it wasn't mine. So I'm like on my phone looking if I can become a showgirl in Vegas, but then I wasn't tall enough. So like I was just out of options. Like I had to pass. And then they finally called my name, and I realized like this was God's plan. Like this is what I was supposed to do. So I ended up getting a job in Napa, and I just like literally loved it, fell in love. I was walking through the vineyards of Opus One to get to work every day. And, and it was really good and validating for me, because like all my friends back in Miami and stuff, they're like, oh, Erica done gone crazy. She had a midlife crisis. Now, she's doing this. And like during that time, it was a struggle. I had like 3 jobs at one point. I was waitressing at a cheese and wine bar. I was stocking wines at a liquor store. I was doing like everything I could to like support myself and fund myself for this dream. And people just didn't understand it. And they were like, how could you go from being a lawyer to, you're stocking wines and liquors at a liquor store? Like, what's wrong with you? But the beauty of it was like the people who really mattered, my parents, they always had my back. And they were like, oh, you got a job at a liquor store. You go, girl. You're doing you. Like, they were always my cheering squad, even though I know, like, secretly they were going to church, like, dear Lord, please. Our daughter done lost her mind. We need all the prayer warriors, but like to my face, they were always like, no, do this, do you. You have a reason why you're doing this. Like, this isn't an accident. And everything like that. And then the Marriott called in San Diego, and they were like, we're looking for an assistant wine director. Would you come down here and take this job? And I was just like, heck yeah. They told me if you work here for a year, you can transfer to any of our properties in the world. So at night, I would just be looking through the catalog like, I'm going to go to China. I'm going to go to London. I'm, looking at all these places I was going to live, as this wine girl. And I really loved it. And then I got down to San Diego, and it was right on the water. And so all the Navy ships would always be coming in and stuff like that. So I would be seeing them and everything like that. And so all the girls were like, oh, the Navy guys, they're back. The Navy guys are back. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm an Air Force kid. I'm good. I know better. And so then literally the next week, I meet my future husband. And so all of that, like, oh, I'm going to go travel the world of wine. And he's like, no, you're going to stay right here and get married. So I was just like, okay, I love you. Let's do this, And so fast forward, we get married. Then a year later, a little less than a year later, I end up having my first child, my son. And now I'm homebound. And I'm like, oh no, this is awful. I was like, I can't go nowhere. I got to just, my whole life is trying to keep this kid alive. And we don't even speak the same language. And this is awful. So when he would sleep, I would go outside. We had like this little patio, and I would like call my mom and dad and, just be telling them like how awful my life was and how stressed I was and stuff like that. And then we'd just be like shooting the crap. And so I was talking about my dad, like, when you retire, and he's like, well, baby, I always wanted to have a barbecue restaurant. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, yeah, we should do that. And he's like, when I retire, I have a little truck, a little something on the side of the road, something. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. I was like, okay, so what do we need to do that? And then both of us realized neither one of us knew how to cook barbecue.
Oh, so he just had a dream.
Yeah,
right. It wasn't his thing.
He's like, I'm going to just buy the trailer.
That's hilarious.
Like, it can't be that hard.
Yeah, I was like, this is a bad plan, Dad. Like, so then I was like, okay. I was like, you buy the trailer. I'm gonna somehow learn how to barbecue. And I started watching all the barbecue competition shows on TV because I was home. And then I started seeing all them people on TV, and they're like crap talking and rolling smoke, and I'm just like, dude, this is like a family reunion for me. I can do this. So then I was like, well, how do you learn barbecue? And I started Googling schools, and I found where I was living in LA, so like 3-4 hours up without traffic, Harry Sue had a barbecue class. And so I just signed up for it. I was like, I'm gonna do this. And then at the same time, I had like signed up for a bunch of competitions. I didn't even have a grill. I had nothing. And I hurried up and I signed up for like 4 competitions in California, and didn't know nothing. Didn't even know like what type of wood you're supposed to use, like just awful. But I had like read in a chat room somewhere that like competitions, they sell out fast. So you need to hurry up and get your name on the list, which is not true. But, so I hurried up and I put my name out there. I formed Blue Smoke Blair's Barbecue after Dolly Parton and her song Blue Smoke. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to go. So let me hurry up and go to this class. So then, I can know what to do when I go out to these competitions. And I get to Harry Sue's house, and I'm just like, oh my God, the guy from TV is letting me come to his house. Like, so I stood on the driveway, like, cause I didn't want to be seen. And then I was just like, oh my God, all the people that are here, they're probably like pit masters and barbecue folks. And I'm going to get outed as a poser. Like, this is going to be a disaster. And so I walked in when it was time for class, and it's like, as soon as I rounded the corner, there was Harry Sue. It was like I ran into a bear. I was like, oh my God. And everybody was just so nice. They were the nicest people I'd ever met, and they were so welcoming. And I was just like, whoa, this community is amazing. And everybody was so nice, and they were like telling me things and telling me where to look and what I should be buying. And I was just like, what planet are we on? Like, why are people being so nice and awesome? I was like, I want more of this. And so then Harry asked if anybody did competition barbecue, and the guy next to me, he was like, you're going to do competition barbecue, like raise your hand. And so I was like, no. And he's like, no, raise your hand. So I like raised my hand, and then Harry was like, okay. He's like, what's your team name? And I had never said it out loud before. I was on Zazzle making little like cups and stuff. And so like all of a sudden I just like jumped up, and I stood up, and I was like, I'm Blue Smoke Blair. And I'm telling you, it's so corny, but like I felt the universe open up at that moment that I finally said my barbecue name. And I felt like, okay, something's going to come of this. Something's going to happen. Awesome. And after that, I learned from him. Then I flew and I drove out to Georgia. I went to Myron Mixon's class. That was a 3-day class, and he was all competition. And then he asked me if I was going to do Memphis in May, which I'd never heard of. And so I'm like, oh yeah. I'm going to do Memphis in May. Like, yeah. I'm Googling it on my phone. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be there. Like,
and fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I had like one competition under my belt at that point, and I came in dead last in every category. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be there. And so then I hurried up and I signed up for it because I was like, okay, you just told like a really big lie. Like, now you got to make an honest woman out of yourself. Now you got to go. And then I think about a month later, they did the lottery, and I actually got a spot.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. I was like, I'm supposed to be here. All right, let's do this. So I just started competing really, really hard. And I competed by myself. I didn't have anything. I rented a U-Haul truck and a U-Haul trailer. I slept in the trailer. Like, I had a sleeping bag, or I tried to sleep in the truck sometimes. And I was out there with a little lantern, like trimming meats, because I didn't know the rules. I thought they said like you couldn't have things already done. I didn't know that you could trim at home. So I thought, oh, you have to trim everything on site. And then finally this guy came over. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just trimming chicken and all that. He's like, you need to do that at home. He's like, all you need to do here is cook it. And I was like, oh, the rules allow that? He's like, yes, honey. And I was like, okay. I was like, thank you so much. It was like 3 a.m. And so I just kept competing, and then I would just pack up my little U-Haul and drive all around the place, Kentucky, Indiana, everywhere. And then finally one day I was heading out to another competition and it was like 5 a.m. I needed to get on the road and I saw headlights in my driveway and I'm just like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, like my mom pulled up in her minivan, like she jumped out and she was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here to be your road dog. Let's do this. And then we formed our barbecue team, and it's always been me and her. And we've traveled the whole US. We've been through hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, like rains, floods. We've gone everywhere. But at that point, I still had a rental U-Haul. And after one night in the U-Haul and having to use a porta potty, she was like, no, we're not doing this like this. She's like, we're going to go get an RV. She's like, we ain't living like this, Erica. No. So then we went and, we financed an RV and we started traveling around in the RV as our team. We went to Memphis in May. We kicked butt, made history for Black females. We made history for Black females at Memphis in May. We walked the stage twice, the first Black females to do that. And, it's been that journey ever since. And then I got on Instagram and I was in a barbecue chat group because I was trying to learn barbecue, and it still goes on. It's called the Pitmasters chat. And so I learned so much from them. And then one of the guys in there, he was like, hey, I was like, I only had like 10 followers. And he's like, hey, here's what you need to do to fix your account for Instagram so you can be visible and get more followers. And so he was telling me about, how to take better pictures. And he was telling me that I needed to fix the bio in my Instagram. And I'm like, what's a bio? He's like, yeah, exactly. You don't have one. He's like, you need to go up. He's like, you need to go up to the top of your Instagram. He's like, fill out very briefly, like who you are, who you want to be online. He's like, but then also he's like, you need to put #barbecue in. He's like, because that's how people will find you. And so I was like, hashtags. And he's like, oh, he's like, I'll help you, girl. He's like, just go look at my account. He's frozen smoked barbecue. He's out of Alaska. And so I said, okay, is this right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, now put #barbecue, #pitmaster in your bio, like right after your name. And he's like, people will start finding you. And literally I did that. And then the next thing you know, I started getting more followers and my account started actually getting boosted up. And then literally 1 month after I did that, I had only been on Instagram. This was January and I had been on Instagram since November. So not that long. And then the next thing I know, I get a DM and it's from a casting agent talking about, we have a barbecue show and we found your Instagram and would you be interested in doing it? And I was just like, first I thought it was a scam. So I screenshot it. I sent it to the group. And one of the guys was like, no, they're real. I worked with them when I was supposed to go on a show. He's like, you need to call them back like right now if it's not too late. So now I'm panicking. And so I called them back and I went through the whole interview process. They told me it was just going to be like a friendly competition show. They don't tell you the network. So I'm just thinking, okay. I was like, I could do a friendly competition show. And then I didn't hear from them for a year. But like at that point, I was so excited that I even got noticed and that, it validated I should be doing barbecue. So I just went competing even harder, like just going out, competing a lot, posting tons of content but being real about my content. Like I never tried to be like, oh, I'm the boss. Like, I was like, I don't know something, but I'm trying it right now. Let's see what happens, and let's just experiment. And I didn't have trouble putting up my fails. Like when I messed up a recipe, I would put it up there too. And so I think like being authentic and sincere on Instagram, and especially that was right during the pandemic. So everybody was online. I think that really helped me really get in this community a lot better because they were just like, she's not trying to pretend like, she's cool or whatever. She's just trying to like survive and barbecue right now. And then a year exactly to the day, all of a sudden I get a call, but this time it's from Food Network. And I'm just like, oh my God, uh-oh. And they're like, hey, can you be down in Austin, Texas in 2 weeks? And of course, I just said yes. Like, I got a kid. It's the lockdown. Like,
it'd be all right.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, why not?
And so then afterwards I like call my mom and dad and I'm like, hey, I'll watch my kid. I got to go. And so they were just like, oh my God, like do it, girl. We got you. And so I get down there And that was right when the Netflix Chef's Table, remember when that came out?
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
was like Rodney Scott's episode, and I'd be sitting down in the basement in like sub-zero Ohio temperature in my drawers, like watching Rodney Scott, like, oh my God, he's amazing, how cool. And so I get out of the Uber to the hotel, and as soon as the doors open, Rodney Scott is standing right there. And I was just like, all of a sudden, like all my confidence just left my body. And I was like, oh no. Like if Rodney Scott is a competitor, I need to go home now. So I called my dad and I was like, hey, I got some good news and some bad news for you, Dad. And he's like, yeah, you there? What's happening? I was like, yeah, I'm here. I was like, the good news is I'm probably going to be home real soon. So you're not going to have to watch my kid that long. I was like, but the bad news is I'm going to embarrass our whole family on national television. I was like, I'm going to just do that right now. And so he was like, well, just do your best and don't use our last name. So when I got on the show, I just went by Erica Blair. I did not put Roby down because I did not want to embarrass my family. I was like, Erica Blair, they'd have to really try to find me. They wouldn't know like I'm, associated with the Robys. I was like, so that'll be okay. I can have plausible deniability that was not me on there acting a fool. And then, I got on the show and it was intense. It was amazing. It was scary. I went from having the safety of one camera for Instagram to having like 12 cameras within 5 inches of my face at any given time for 10 hours a day. And, you don't think about the faces you make when you're cooking. You don't think about, so I'm like sitting there and I'm like, always smile, like don't be making weird faces because the camera is capturing all of that, and they're going to cut and splice it to either make you look like incompetent or make you look like you're mean, or so I just like stayed there like this the whole time for like 10 weeks. Every time I was doing something, I was just smiling, and but it was amazing. But the one thing I noticed, like, because of my backstory, I had no ego. Like, I did not think I walked on water. I never called myself a chef. Definitely did not call myself a pit master. I was still blowing up grills. So I was not, I literally had no ego. I was just grateful to be there. And that was very different than a lot of the other people that were on the show that were already established. And, they already had a brand and a reputation and stuff like that. And I didn't have any of that. So I thought that was a weakness at the time, but that turned out to be a superpower because nobody was checking for me. They're like, oh, she's going to be gone like so soon. So nobody was checking for me. I was like free to just like do my own thing. Like everybody else was acting a fool or doing their thing or plugging, their brand, their image that they thought that they needed to put out there on television. And I was just like being me, like trying to survive. And so nobody ever really like thought I was a threat. They were just like, oh, this nice girl who smiles all day from Ohio.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody thought I was a threat. So nobody was ever guarded around me. And I didn't like, seeing like the tension and stuff because that's not how I live my life. So I really went out like trying to be friends with everybody and just like try to get to know everybody because I was like, this is a really cool thing we're doing. Like, this is amazing. Like, we should all be friends and, talk and chat. And that was like not happening. And, but I did make like some really lifelong friends on the show. And then I felt really intimidated because I was like, oh, all these pit masters. And then here I am. And then one day, like after getting my butt kicked for, I think, for 5 weeks, they would call me everything but a child of the Most High during the judging portion. And so it just like came to me. I was like, you know what? I was like, you need to start cooking what you cook. Like, you need to start being you and not trying to be like them. You need to just do you. And then Bobby Flay told me at one point, he was like, you know how I win everything that I've done? He's like, I always cook inside of myself. I don't cook outside of myself. He said, he just like looked at me and it was like a Mr. Miyagi moment. He's like, only cook what you know. And I just, for some reason that resonated. And then this like, I did a complete 180. I turned on a dime. I started doing Creole dishes, but on the, on barbecue, making it barbecue influence and stuff like that. And I went from getting on the bottom and going to elimination every single night to all of a sudden I was winning the challenges. And it was really that shift and that confidence and like, you're good enough as you are. Like, you don't have to be anybody else. Just be you. You got yourself on the show. Like, be you. And I think that was one of the things that a lot of people weren't doing. They were trying to be somebody who they thought they were supposed to be. Yeah. And like, it's like, no, you are enough. Just as you are today, you are enough, you know? And I was just like, don't ever forget that. And then all of a sudden, you know, it was the final night and we're sitting there and all I could do was think about like, okay, after tonight, like, I'll just be able to lay down and go to sleep, you know? No matter what happens, I'll be alive. And I made it to the end. I don't even care. Like the final cook, I was just having fun. Like I didn't even care. I wasn't stressed. And then all of a sudden, like when they came to the announcement of who was going to be barbecue brawl champion, Master of Q, they said my name. And I was just like, you know, and I waited the first time they said it because I thought maybe I had like a break with reality. It was like a full induced psychosis. So I waited. And then when they said it again and like Bobby started hugging me, I realized I was like, oh, this is real. This really happened. And I was just like, my life, like I will never be the same. I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to spread like serious barbecue love out in the world because that's what got me through all the way to that point was barbecue love. And I was like, even more so now than ever, like I need to go out there and just let people know like the healing powers of barbecue in the barbecue community. Yep, yeah. And I haven't stopped since then.
It's a great unifier, right?
Yeah.